Welcome to JL Real Life, exclusive stories where true stories come alive, raw, powerful, and unforgettable. If you love real survival, courage, and life-changing experiences, you are in the right place. Don't just watch, hit subscribe now, because every week we bring you stories that prove life is stranger, braver, and sometimes scarier than fiction. The morning sun crept slowly over the jagged edges of the canyon, washing the landscape in warm gold. She tightened the strap on her hiking pack, adjusted the brim of her cap, and smiled at the wide, open trail ahead. Today was her day. No phones ringing, no office deadlines, no noise, but the soft crunch of gravel under her boots. She loved hiking because it gave her something life rarely offered: silence and freedom. She had been planning this trip for weeks, carefully choosing this route for its solitude and the unique beauty of its narrow sandstone crevices. She filmed short clips on her small camera, speaking to it like an old friend, documenting the excitement of stepping away from the world. "This is it," she said, grinning into the lens, "just me, nature, and 20 miles of peace." The trail narrowed as she ventured deeper, flanked by towering walls of rock glowing orange under the early light. She slowed her pace, savoring every sound: the whisper of wind weaving through canyon cracks, the distant trickle of water, the flutter of wings above. This was what she lived for, moments untouched by the chaos of everyday life. She paused at a cliff edge, looking down at the snaking path below, and exhaled deeply. From here the world seemed endless, yet still hers to explore. She ran her fingers along the cool rock, feeling the ancient grooves shaped by time. A quick sip from her water bottle, a check of her gear, everything was perfect. She even double-checked her pocket knife, more habit than necessity. After all, what could go wrong on a day like this? Her map showed a narrow pass ahead, one she had been eager to see. The photos online had promised spectacular views, a place where the canyon walls pressed close enough to block out most of the sky. It would be challenging, but rewarding, a hidden gem meant for people willing to work for it. With a light-hearted chuckle, she muttered, "Let's see what you have got," and stepped into the shaded gap. The air cooled instantly, the sunlight dimming as stone walls rose sharply on either side. She loved it here, tight spaces where the world shrank down to nothing but her and the rock. The silence was heavier now, almost intimate. She pulled out her camera for one last clip before tackling the pass. "This is amazing," she whispered, panning up toward the narrow blue strip of sky. "This is why I hike alone. Places like this make you feel small, but free at the same time." She didn't know it yet, but the peace she cherished so much would soon be shattered. In the next few moments, her life would change forever, and every choice she made from here on would decide whether she lived to see another sunrise. She edged deeper into the narrow pass, her boots scraping against loose gravel as the walls seemed to press closer with every step. The air felt cooler here, almost damp, and the light dimmed as towering rock faces swallowed the morning sun. She rested her palm on one wall as she walked, steadying herself while marveling at how ancient and unmoving it felt beneath her touch. A sharp cracking sound shattered the silence. She froze. Pebbles rained down from above, clicking against the stone and bouncing near her feet. Her eyes darted upward. Nothing looked unstable, but her chest tightened. "Probably just wine," she whispered, trying to steady her breathing. She adjusted her pack and continued forward, but her pace slowed, cautious now. Then it happened. A deep groan echoed through the canyon, like a door of stone swinging on rusty hinges. She barely had time to glance to her right before a boulder dislodged from somewhere above crashed against the canyon wall and rolled toward her. Instinct took over. She leapt back, arms out, searching for anything to grab. The boulder bounced once and slammed into her right arm, pinning it hard against the jagged wall. The scream tore out of her before she even realized she was in pain. "No, no, no," she shouted, pulling, twisting, anything to free herself, but the rock held fast. She pushed with her legs, trying to leverage her body away, but the boulder didn't budge. It was heavier than anything she had ever encountered, impossibly solid, immovable. Her chest rose and fell in sharp, shallow breaths. She tugged again, panic climbing fast as her arm throbbed with searing pain. She tried using her left hand to push the rock away, but it didn't move, not even an inch. She shifted angles, planted her boots against the opposite wall, and pulled with everything she had. Nothing. The realization came like ice in her veins. She was stuck. She reached for her phone with trembling fingers, hoping for signal, any signal, but the screen mocked her: no service. Her heart sank. Somebody help, she screamed, her voice echoing through the canyon and dying in the distance. Silence answered. Minutes felt like hours as she fought to free herself, alternating between desperate shoves and frantic pulls. Sweat rolled down her temple despite the cool canyon air. Pain shot up her trapped arm, turning from sharp to numb, then sharp again. The edges of panic blurred into something worse, helplessness. She leaned her head against the cold rock, breathing heavily, trying to think. Maybe someone would come by. Maybe another hiker would hear her. She shouted again, voice cracking, but there was no response, only the stillness of the canyon. The truth pressed in as heavily as the boulder on her arm. She was alone. Her heart pounded as she whispered to herself, stay calm, you can figure this out. But deep down, she already knew this wasn't going to be easy, and rescue might not come at all. The first hour felt endless, each minute stretching into an eternity of struggle and pain. She pulled, twisted, pushed with her legs until sweat soaked through her shirt, but the boulder refused to move. Her trapped arm throbbed in a rhythm that matched the pounding of her heart, sharp at first, then numb, then sharp again. She screamed until her voice cracked, but the canyon swallowed her cries like an empty well. No one came. By the time the sun dipped behind the cliffs, the cold crept in. She shivered as darkness wrapped around her, the silence, now heavier, the air thinner. She shifted her weight to ease the pressure, but nothing relieved the grinding ache in her arm. Exhaustion pulled at her eyelids, but fear kept her awake. She couldn't stop thinking about coyotes, about being found too late, about simply fading into this canyon and never leaving. Morning light brought no hope, only reality. Her water bottle was nearly empty, her snacks long gone. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, but thirst was worse, her lips cracked and throat burning. She tried again to free herself, using her belt as leverage, pushing until tears blurred her vision. Still nothing moved. On the second night, thoughts turned dark. Memories of her family filled her mind, her mother's warm smile, her best friend's laugh, the life she had taken for granted just 2 days ago. She whispered apologies to no one, and everyone wondering if she should leave a message, something for whoever found her. Using a rock, she scratched words into the canyon wall. I love you all, don't give up on life like I did today. By day 3, weakness replaced panic. She rationed her last sips of water, knowing it wouldn't last. Hallucinations teased her, shadows at the corner of her eyes, distant voices that weren't there. She thought she heard footsteps once and screamed until her voice broke, but it was only wind funneling through the canyon. Her trapped arm had grown pale, almost lifeless, the skin cold to the touch. She tried to focus on solutions, not fear. She examined the boulder, searching for a gap, a crack, anything she hadn't noticed before. She considered breaking her own bones to slip out, the thought horrifying but real. She even pulled out her pocket knife, once turning it over in her trembling hand, imagining what it would mean to use it. The thought made her stomach turn, but the longer she sat, the louder her instincts screamed one truth: no one is coming. That night, she recorded a goodbye video on her camera, voice trembling as she thanked her loved ones and said the words she had been avoiding, I don't think I'm going to make it. But even as she said it, something deep inside her resisted. The human will to live, buried under layers of exhaustion and despair, began to stir. By the time the fourth morning came, she knew she had one choice left, one unthinkable, terrifying choice. Dawn broke, cold and silent, painting the canyon walls in pale gold. She stared at her arm, pinned and lifeless, the skin a strange bluish tone. She touched it with her free hand, numb. It didn't even feel like part of her anymore. Her body was dehydrated, weak, yet her mind was sharp in one terrifying way. This was it. If she didn't act today, she wouldn't see another sunrise. Her hand shook as she pulled out her small pocket knife. The blade glinted in the early light, dull from years of casual use, but still capable of cutting. She steadied herself against the wall, her breath shallow and fast. You can do this, you have to do this, she whispered. She tied her belt tightly above her elbow, creating a makeshift tourniquet. Her pulse pounded in her ears as she positioned the blade against her skin. The first cut stole her breath, white-hot pain flashing through her entire body, but she didn't stop. She bit down on her shirt, muffling a scream as she sliced through muscle and tendons, each movement deliberate and agonizing. Her world narrowed to 2 things: pain and survival. Minutes stretched endlessly as she worked, pausing only when the pain threatened to overwhelm her. Tears streaked down her dusty cheeks, but she pushed on, thinking of her family, of life beyond this canyon, of not dying here. Finally, the bone was all that remained. She used the edge of the rock as leverage, snapping what her knife couldn't cut. One final scream ripped from her throat, echoing through the canyon like a wounded animal, and then she was free. Her vision blurred, body trembling violently as adrenaline surged. She wrapped what remained of her arm with a strip torn from her shirt, tying it as tightly as she could. Every step was a battle against dizziness and pain, but she forced herself forward, cradling her wounded arm against her chest. The canyon walls that had trapped her now became an endless maze, each turn a desperate search for escape. After hours of stumbling, she emerged from the narrow pass and onto the open trail. She collapsed, briefly gasping for breath before forcing herself up again. Her legs carried her on instinct, one step, then another, until she spotted something: hikers in the distance. She waved, weakly, voice cracking, "Help, please." The hikers ran toward her, shock flashing across their faces as they saw the shirt wrapped around her arm. One pulled out a phone while another gave her water, their voices a blur of comfort and urgency. "Stay with us, you are going to be okay," someone said, though she barely heard it. When the rescue helicopter finally lifted her out of the canyon, she stared at the endless sky and exhaled, tears falling freely. She had lost an arm, but gained her life, proof of a simple, brutal truth: when survival is the only choice, human willpower can defy anything, even fear itself. Thanks for watching another powerful story here on JL Real Life Exclusive Stories. If this inspired you or kept you on the edge of your seat, don't leave without hitting that subscribe button. Give this video a like, share it with friends who love real-life drama, and hit the bell icon so you never miss any of our exclusive stories. This is JL Real Life Exclusive Stories, where the truth is always more powerful than fiction. See you in the next one.